All right, so today we're diving deep into this book by Paul Watzlawick.
Okay.
It's called The Situation is Hopeless, but Not Serious: The Pursuit of Unhappiness.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny title when you think about it,
Yeah.
but it's all about how we kind of chase unhappiness,
hmm
even when it seems like we have every reason to be happy.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're wired for it in a way.
Yeah, and he uses a lot of humor and playful language in this book
Okay.
to explore these kind of hidden mechanisms that we
Yeah.
use to sabotage our own happiness.
I like that approach.
Yeah, it's not like a blamey self-help book.
Right.
It's more about recognizing these patterns in ourselves without feeling bad about it.
Yeah, like holding up a mirror, but in a kind way.
Exactly. So one of the first things he talks about is how clinging to these popular wisdoms,
hmm
those little sayings we always hear, like, to thine own self be true.
Right, right.
He says those can actually lead us down the path to unhappiness.
Really, it's like those inspirational quotes you see everywhere that sound great, but when you actually think about them, they don't always hold up.
Yeah, and he uses the example of Polonius in Hamlet,
Okay.
who gives that famous advice to his son, to thine own self be true.
Right.
But then ironically, Polonius ends up getting killed.
Oh, wow. So it's like the advice backfires on him?
Yeah, and Watzlawick suggests that clinging too rigidly to a self-defined truth,
Oh.
even one that's considered universally wise, can actually make us our own worst enemy.
That makes sense. I mean, like if you're so focused on being true to yourself, you might miss out on other perspectives.
Exactly. He gives this example of someone refusing to change careers,
Yeah.
even though it's making them miserable, simply because they've convinced themselves that this is their true calling.
I've totally been there, like sticking with something that clearly wasn't working.
Yeah, it's like we get so attached to this idea of who we are
Right.
that any deviation from that feels like a threat.
And that can lead to like a real sense of misery.
Yeah, and it's almost like they find a weird kind of satisfaction in their own unhappiness.
Yeah.
Like it's a badge of honor for staying true to themselves.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So moving on from that, he talks about how we interact with our past.
Okay.
And he outlines these 4 games with the past
4 games.
as mechanisms for creating unhappiness from past experiences.
Okay, so it's like we're using the past to fuel our current unhappiness.
Exactly. And the first one is this glorification of the past.
Okay, what's that?
Well, it's where we basically romanticize the past.
Uh-huh.
We filter out all the negative aspects and turn it into this lost paradise,
Right.
which then makes the present seem dull in comparison.
Yeah, I can see that, like thinking about a past relationship and only remembering the good parts.
Exactly. And that constant comparison with an idealized past can make happiness in the present seem impossible.
It's like setting yourself up for disappointment.
Right. So the next game is called Mrs. Lot.
Mrs. Lot.
Yeah, it's based on the biblical story of Mrs. Lot, who turns into a pillar of salt
Oh, yeah.
because she looked back at the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
And Watzlaw uses this to illustrate our tendency to fixate on negative events from the past.
So like dwelling on past mistakes or traumas.
Exactly. And instead of moving on, we use these past events as a shield against facing the present.
Okay, that's a powerful image.
It is. It's like being so afraid to step outside that you use a past rainy day as an excuse to stay indoors forever.
Wow, I can see how that would keep you stuck.
Yeah. So the next game is called The Fatal Glass of Beer.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
And this one is all about the idea that our past dictates our present no matter what.
Oh, like we're doomed to repeat our mistakes.
Yeah. It's like saying, I messed up once, so I'm destined to mess up forever.
Right.
He gives an example of someone who had a bad experience public speaking years ago.
Okay.
And now they avoid any opportunity to speak in public because they're convinced they'll fail again.
Yeah, they've internalized that past experience as a defining truth about themselves.
Exactly. And they're unconsciously acting in ways that confirm that belief.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. They're not giving themselves a chance to grow or rewrite the narrative.
So how do you break free from that?
Well, that's something we can talk about later, but first let's move on to the last game, which is called The Lost Key.
Go.
And this one is about our tendency to stick with solutions that have worked in the past, even when they're no longer effective in the present.
Right.
So he tells this funny story of a man searching for his lost key under a street lamp.
Under a street lamp.
Yeah. And when someone asks him why he's looking there, he says, it's the only place where I can see.
Oh, I get it. He's so focused on what's familiar.
Exactly. He's clinging to that safe solution, even if it means experiencing more of the same misery, as Watzlawick puts it.
So it's about recognizing when we're stuck in those old patterns.
Yeah, and being willing to step out from under that street lamp and explore some new territory.
That makes a lot of sense. Welcome back. So we've been talking about how we kind of make ourselves miserable.
Yeah.
But Watzlawick also points out that there are some areas where we're particularly good at it.
Like fertile ground for unhappiness. What do you mean by that?
Well, he dives into some specific scenarios where these self-defeating tendencies can really take root.
Okay.
And what's more universal than love and relationships, right?
True. But love is supposed to be about happiness, so how do we mess that up?
I know, right? It seems counterintuitive, but he argues that one way we do this is by setting impossible standards.
Oh, okay.
He uses this concept of the blue flower, which is a symbol of this, like, unattainable romantic longing.
Oh, okay.
Like, we're always searching for the perfect partner, the one who will fulfill every need and make us completely happy.
Right.
But that person doesn't exist.
So we're setting ourselves up for disappointment from the start.
Exactly. We chase this phantom of the one.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we often overlook the real connections we have right in front of us.
It's like we're so busy looking at the stars that we trip over the flowers at our feet.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And is there anything else we do to kind of sabotage our happiness and love?
Well, think about this.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed how the excitement leading up to a relationship milestone,
Oh, like the anticipation.
yeah, exactly,
Okay.
can sometimes feel more satisfying than actually achieving it?
It's interesting now that you mention it. Yeah, I can kind of relate to that.
So Watzlawick suggests that, like, the anticipation, the dreaming, the planning, that's where we often experience like a heightened sense of happiness.
Okay.
But then once the goal is reached, the wedding, the moving, the big trip,
Yeah.
that excitement can fade and we're left with everyday reality.
Which might not live up to the fantasy.
Exactly.
So it's almost like we're happier in the pursuit than in the attainment.
Yeah, he's not saying that achieving goals in love is bad or
Yeah.
anything, but rather that we should be mindful of this tendency
Okay.
to place all our happiness on the destination
Yeah.
rather than enjoying the journey along the way.
That makes sense. It's about finding that balance, between looking forward to something and appreciating what you have right now.
Exactly.
But shifting gears a bit, I'm curious about this idea of helping leading to unhappiness.
Okay.
It seems counterintuitive that an act of kindness could be harmful.
Right. It does seem like a paradox.
Yeah.
But Watzlawick argues that even well-intentioned aid can backfire,
Okay.
especially in relationships where one person consistently plays the helper and the other the helped.
Okay.
It creates this kind of dependence that can trap both individuals.
I see what you mean. The helper gets a sense of self-worth from rescuing,
Yeah.
while the helped becomes reliant on that assistance.
Right. It's like a lopsided seesaw.
Yeah,
It might look fun for a moment, but eventually someone's going to get hurt.
exactly. And often this dynamic isn't even conscious. Both parties might be genuinely unaware of the underlying motivations driving their behavior.
But the consequences can be pretty damaging.
So how do we break free from these unhelpful patterns of helping?
Well, it starts with awareness.
Okay.
We need to check our motivations. Are we helping out of genuine care or to boost our ego or maintain control?
Oh, that's a good point.
And we should strive for empowerment in our helping,
Okay.
focusing on supporting the other person's growth and autonomy.
So it's about offering a hand up, not a hand out.
Exactly. Now, for a different perspective,
Okay.
Watzlawick dives into the role that cultural differences can play in our pursuit of unhappiness.
Oh, interesting.
He uses anthropologist Margaret Mead's observations on Russian and American approaches to difficult situations as an example.
Okay.
Mead noted that Russians often prioritize a smooth solution, even if it involves a white lie,
Okay.
while Americans tend to emphasize truthfulness, even if it leads to complications.
That's an interesting contrast. So it's like choosing between keeping the peace and sticking to your principles,
Exactly.
even if it makes things messier.
Right. And to illustrate this point, he shares the stories of Bobby Kesey and Mike Marin.
Okay.
Kesey, an American, gets himself into trouble
Uh-huh.
because of his unwavering commitment to honesty,
Oh, wow.
even when a little white lie could have saved him.
Really?
Meanwhile, Marin seems to unconsciously create predicaments
Okay.
that reinforce his belief that he's always the victim.
So it's like their cultural conditioning is influencing their actions and experiences.
Exactly. What might be considered a virtue in one culture
Yeah.
could be a liability in another.
That's a good point. It underscores the importance of being aware of our own cultural biases
Right.
and how they might be shaping our perceptions and reactions.
Exactly. There's not one right way.
Yeah,
But understanding these differences can lead to more empathy and less judgment.
absolutely. Speaking of perceptions, I'm intrigued by Watzlawick's story of the hammer.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like such a simple scenario, but he uses it to reveal a lot about manipulation and the power of suggestion.
Remember the story. A man needs to borrow a hammer from his neighbor.
Yeah.
But before even asking, he starts dwelling on all the reasons why his neighbor might refuse.
It's like he's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
His negative thinking is actually increasing the likelihood that his neighbor will say no.
And this relates to the techniques described by Ovid and Coué.
Okay.
Ovid suggested subtly planting a thought in someone's mind and letting it grow,
Okay.
while Coué emphasized the power of self-conviction.
So in this case, the man is essentially planting the thought of refusal in his own mind.
Exactly.
It's amazing how our thoughts can shape our reality.
Right.
But it's not just about our own thoughts, is it?
No.
Watzlawick talks about the illusion of alternatives,
Okay.
where we're manipulated into making a choice that's already been predetermined.
He gives the example of a man shouting at his wife in different tones,
Oh, wow!
giving the illusion of choice, but ensuring she'll always end up upset.
So it's a subtle form of manipulation.
Yeah.
And being aware of it can help us make more authentic choices.
Exactly. Now, this next concept is a bit mind-bending.
Okay.
Watzlawick explores how we can actually pursue unhappiness through spontaneity.
That's another one of those paradoxes.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But he argues that the demand for spontaneity is inherently self-defeating.
Oh, okay.
The moment we try to force it, it ceases to be genuine.
Right.
Imagine someone demanding that their partner be more spontaneous in their affections.
Oh, yeah, that would just create pressure and performance anxiety, which kills any chance of genuine spontaneity.
True spontaneity comes from a place of inner freedom,
Okay.
not from external pressure.
That makes sense. And speaking of inner freedom,
Yeah.
Watzlawick also delves into a question that plagues many of us.
Okay.
Why do we sometimes feel unlovable?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
What insights does he offer?
Well, he starts by highlighting the paradoxical nature of love itself. He references Groucho Marx's famous quip, "I wouldn't want to belong to any club that would have me as a member."
That's funny because it's true.
Yeah, it speaks to how our own sense of worthiness can influence our experiences in love.
If we don't believe we deserve love,
Yeah.
we're likely to act in ways that confirm this belief.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. Our fears and insecurities become the very obstacles
Yeah.
to the love and connection we crave.
We push away the love we desire because we don't believe we're worthy of receiving it.
So if we don't believe in ourselves,
Yeah.
we won't allow others to believe in us either.
We become so focused on what others think of us
Right.
that we lose sight of our own inherent value.
Exactly. Watzlawick suggests that the key to breaking free from this cycle
Okay.
is to cultivate a deep and unwavering sense of self-love.
So it's not about becoming narcissistic,
No.
but rather recognizing and accepting our inherent worthiness,
Exactly.
regardless of external validation.
It's about embracing ourselves, flaws and all, and understanding that we are enough just as we are.
Now, that's an empowering message.
It is.
But what about those of us who struggle with self-doubt?
Yeah,
It can be hard to just flip a switch and suddenly love ourselves unconditionally.
that's true. It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
And it starts with small steps,
Okay.
practicing self-compassion, challenging negative self-talk,
Yeah.
celebrating our strengths.
Okay.
But from this place of self-acceptance,
Yeah.
we can approach love and relationships from a place of wholeness and authenticity
Okay.
rather than neediness or desperation.
It's about recognizing that we are worthy of love.
Yes.
Not because of what we do or achieve,
Right.
but simply because we exist.
Exactly. Now, I'm intrigued by this concept of life as a game.
Oh, yeah. I know Watzlawick draws on Alan Watts' work here.
Yes, Watts famously said that life is a game where rule number one is, this is no game, this is serious.
Uh-huh. I love that. It's that playful paradox
Yeah.
that highlights the absurdity of our existence.
We take life so seriously, yet at the same time.
Yeah,
It's all a big game with its own set of rules and objectives.
exactly. And Watzlawick uses the principles of game theory here,
Okay.
distinguishing between zero-sum games,
Uh-huh.
where one person's gain equals the other's loss,
Okay.
and non-zero-sum games, where everyone can win or lose.
Right.
He argues that many relationships get stuck in the zero-sum trap,
Oh, I see.
leading to unnecessary conflict and unhappiness.
So it's like seeing relationships as a competition
Yeah,
instead of a collaboration.
exactly. We're so focused on winning
Mm-hmm.
that we miss out on the joy of playing together.
But if we can shift our perspective
Okay.
and see life as a non-zero-sum game
Yeah.
where cooperation and mutual benefit are possible,
Right.
we can create relationships that are truly supportive and fulfilling.
It's about moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset,
Exactly.
recognizing that there's enough love, success, and happiness to go around.
And that brings us to an interesting question. If life is indeed a game, what kind of players are we? Are we playing to win at all costs?
Yeah.
Or are we open to the possibility of cooperation and mutual benefit?
So welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into this pursuit of unhappiness.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, exploring all these sneaky ways we sabotage our own happiness.
But the good news is Watzlawick doesn't just leave us with the problem.
Oh, okay, good.
He actually offers some strategies for changing our perspective.
Oh, okay, so let's talk solutions. Where do we even begin to untangle all these self-defeating patterns?
Well, one of the key takeaways is the power of reframing.
Reframing.
Yeah, like changing the lens through which we view a situation.
Okay.
He uses this example of the Austrian saying,
Okay.
the situation is hopeless, but not serious.
Oh, I like that.
It's a reminder that even when things seem really bad, there's always room for a lighthearted approach.
So instead of getting all bogged down in the drama,
Yeah.
we can try to find the humor in it.
Exactly like choosing to laugh at a spilled glass of milk instead of letting it ruin your whole day.
Right. It's a shift in attitude that can make all the difference.
And this also ties into another important concept, acceptance.
Okay.
Watzlawick says a lot of our suffering comes from resisting reality.
Yeah, like trying to force things to be different from how they are.
Exactly. It reminds me of that Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Right. We can't always control what happens to us.
Yeah.
But we can control how we respond.
And acceptance isn't about giving up or being passive.
Right.
It's about acknowledging what is and then focusing our energy on what we can control.
So like our thoughts, our actions, our attitude.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the need to micromanage every aspect of our lives.
Okay.
And trusting that even amidst the chaos,
Yeah.
there's a deeper order at play.
But letting go isn't always easy.
No, it's definitely a practice.
Yeah.
But Watzlawick reminds us that we're ultimately responsible for our own happiness.
Right. We can't wait for someone else to make us happy.
Yeah, or for our circumstances to change.
It's an inside job.
Exactly. He compares our minds to gardens.
Oh, yeah.
We can choose to cultivate beautiful flowers or let them become overrun with weeds.
It's a powerful analogy.
It is. We have the power to choose what we nurture.
And that brings us to mindfulness.
Yeah.
Which is about paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Right, like becoming a curious observer of our own internal experience.
Yeah, we notice the thoughts and feelings that come up, but we don't have to engage with them.
Exactly. Mindfulness helped us break free from that cycle of rumination and worry.
Right.
It can fuel so much unhappiness.
It allows us to see our thoughts and feelings as passing clouds, rather than getting lost in the storm.
And when we're present in this way, we're more likely to notice the simple joys in life.
Like the warmth of the sun, the taste of a good meal.
Right. Those everyday experiences become richer and more fulfilling.
Absolutely. And speaking of joy, Watzlawick encourages us to embrace a sense of humor and playfulness.
Remember, the situation is hopeless, but not serious.
I love that. It's about finding the absurdity in our struggles.
Yeah.
Laughing at ourselves, not taking everything so seriously.
That lightness of being can be so liberating.
Yeah, like we're finally putting down that heavy baggage we've been carrying for so long.
Exactly.
So another thing that really struck me in the book is his emphasis on challenging our assumptions.
Oh, yeah.
Like he encourages us to experiment with new ways of thinking and behaving.
Especially if our current approach isn't working.
Right. He reminds us that we're not stuck.
We're capable of change and growth.
If our old ways of thinking and behaving are leading us down the path to unhappiness, why not try something different?
It's about stepping outside our comfort zones.
Okay.
And being open to new possibilities.
Even if they seem a little unconventional.
Exactly. And sometimes the smallest changes can have the biggest impact.
Like what kind of changes?
Well, it could be something as simple as changing our self-talk,
Okay.
or setting a boundary in a relationship, or trying a new hobby.
It's about being willing to experiment and see what works.
Right, and if something doesn't work, try something else.
Approach life with a sense of curiosity and playfulness.
Yeah, like we're all just figuring it out as we go along.
I like that. So I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the pursuit of unhappiness.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It has, and I hope it's left everyone listening with a sense of hope and possibility.
Remember, the situation may be hopeless, but it's not serious.
So true. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, remember to keep those elephants at bay, embrace the absurdity of it all, and choose happiness.